Today's matchup. Cure. DRG. GuMiho. Solar. Round of 8. Group A.
Africa TV, Freak Up Studio, live. 2023 GSL Season 3.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back. What a crazy short series, and what I thought was going to be, I thought it was going to be, an hour plus TVZ. I think this one should be longer because GuMiho, although he can rush, he does like to mech and kind of slow play it. Solar is very, very apt at the kind of long, drawn-out ZVTs. Like the rest of the Zerg, still occasionally pull the trigger and do something aggro, because I think you kind of have to do that if you're going to have, some balance and keep the other guy guessing. The thing about GuMiho is he could just abandon mech entirely.
Yeah, we've seen him mixing up both mech and bio play, and that can be hard for DRG. And I mean, let's not forget DRG also in this group might have to play GuMiho to advance from this one later, but also Solar to prepare for the fact that not only do you have to deal with Cure, who is just one of the best players in the world right now, he is really coming on to the next level, but GuMiho has such a unique style of Terran versus everything in terms of him mixing in mech, using the new Cyclones, switching into bio. He has a tremendous range, but as you said, he is much more of a macro Terran player, so I would be surprised if this series was anywhere close as short as the first one, which I think wrapped up in like 15 minutes or something. It's something
that was
crazy
really
like
quick.
that.
Yeah, it had to be less than 20. Well, Solar, always a threat, always someone who could take down any player in the GSL, and has taken down every player in the GSL. So, it really just depends on what kind of day it's going to be here for Solar. Now, GuMiho, honestly, when we had the patch notes come out, he was the first player I just started thinking about, because I thought, well, his games are going to be different if there's a big focus on the Cyclone. We'll see what he decides to do with it. And yeah, the winner goes up against Cure here in the winner's match. DRG awaits for the loser of this as well, as we are rapidly moving through Group A. It's A here in the round of 8, excuse me. Looks like our countdown has started. GuMiho versus Solar. This set beginning here now. How exactly is GuMiho going to play this? He's got some of the biggest range of plays out there, whereas Solar just all around solid.
GuMiho.
Game paused.
All right, we've got to pause here. Uh-oh.
GuMiho coming through the pause.
Yep.
Wonder what the issue is.
So we'll let you guys know what the issue is exactly.
It seems like it might be a sound issue. He's gesturing at his headset.
Oh, it's possible the earbud fell out.
Yeah.
So the way it works, for those of you who don't know, there's one set of earbuds that has the actual game sounds on here. There's another headset that basically pumps in, I think it's called white noise. So.
Oh. And in fact.
Okay, we just got notified by production. The white noise volume was too low.
So he could hear things.
Yeah.
Wow. GuMiho.
Well, what an honorable gamer.
What a legend.
Yeah.
I would be up there in the booth just like, no, whisper in my ear,
I'd be
tasteless.
like, oh my God, the universe wants me to win this.
Tell me when to build the dark shrine.
Yes.
But yeah, as you were saying, the way that it works is you have these earbuds that have the in-game sound.
Yep.
And those go inside of your ears. And then the headsets that you see on screen, the really big, bulky ones, not only are they generally soundproofing, but they pump white noise through. It sounds like you're in an airplane.
Yes.
Because I remember when I played in Pro League, dealing with these, it was such a weird experience. I felt like it was drowning my thoughts how loud it was.
When we did Tasteless LAN Party 2 and I played that match against Scarlet, that was my first time actually playing with the white noise. Like I had put the headsets on before, like the day before any of the events I've worked in, been like, oh, so that's what it sounds like. But it is a weird experience because, it feels like you're on an airplane. It's very, I don't know if disorienting is the word, but
it does feel disorienting though. It's so. Considering that these guys have played, I forget we didn't even complete the intros yet, but considering these players have competed for what, maybe like 10, 20, 30,000 hours in StarCraft 2 over a decade of their life, not even counting StarCraft 1. And you're doing that in the comfort of your own home, or maybe a PC bong occasionally with just the sound and music getting pumped in, and then you go into a studio setting. If it's the first time ever, and you're suddenly having that sound getting overshadowed by tremendously loud white noise.
Yeah. And lights and camera lenses moving around in your peripheral.
Yeah, that too. But really the white noise, more than anything else, always bothered me. So GuMiho, very respectable, notifying immediately the admin staff that the white noise is too quiet.
I'll tell you a story. Like, way back in StarCraft 1 WCG days, when we would go to the competition in the U.S., there was a couple finals we got to. Like, I got to with some of the other players, and the PCs they had set up, they had a tablecloth. Like on the table where the PC's set up, where if you've ever used a mouse on a mouse pad with a tablecloth, you know that you can't
start just jostling around on top of that thing.
It doesn't work well.
No grip, right?
There's no grip, yeah. And so there was like always this big fight that would happen at the finals where we would have to have them remove the tablecloth, and for whatever reason the ref would be like, we can't move the tablecloth. And like some players would roll the tablecloth up and move it out, and they would just be that ugly wooden board underneath it. And then one case we got them to just take the thing off entirely. But things are very different now, where it's all about player comfort.
Yeah, lands can be pretty janky. I know there are a lot of tournaments as the Reaper comes in. We'll see if this one actually is able to get too much done. Generally speaking, in this day and age of StarCraft 2, this initial Reaper will kill like maybe a Ling and not too much more. But GuMiho is going for 2 racks on the low ground. There are 2 more Reapers getting pumped across the map, so this damage is starting to pile up. But finally, the Queen able to parry this away as GuMiho's going to look for another angle. Perhaps just going to start damaging this third hatchery, but it is always funny if you go to a LAN that's not a completely professional setup, or even not a permanent setup like we have at the GSL, where the booths are just always there and the players are always ready to go to the same scenario, because sometimes you go to other LANs and the desk is either too small or the monitor has to be right in front of you and there's not enough space. The monitor's too close and there's not enough room on the desk. There's a lot of stuff that can go on there. By the way, this hatchery is not going to finish. The Queens are way too far away. The drone gets killed off. Now, it does seem like the Zergs, at least today, but we'll probably see more and more of this, just basically go for a swap. But GuMiho seems to already know that. Wait a minute. Oh.
He had to have seen that, right?
Yeah, I thought he did. I don't know where he is sending those Reapers, actually.
Why would he not just go start the same thing again on that hatchery? That's strange. Maybe he knows there's enough Lings out, kind of like the last game where...
I think there's probably a little bit of a meta game, because at this stage in the game, speed is going to be done, and if you are overextending with these Reapers, and someone like DRG pumps out 20 Lings as before, but now he's coming back in, so...
Maybe he had to go back and take care of some stuff in the macro cycle, like just right-click him somewhere that's safe.
Maybe, but at GuMiho's level, I wouldn't...
No,
I would think
even I'm not sold on what I said there, but...
So maybe if GuMiho's in Gold League, like, that will make sense.
But the idea that occasionally you would just try to figure out what's my priority, be like, okay, I need to move this over here. Some moments in a macro cycle could be harder than others, but yeah, I mean, he stayed back. He's going to have Marines with Stim. He could just kind of have this ground push that comes through where, with Creep not fully connected to that third base, maybe he could have another attack in where he can overpower the Zerg.
I think he was just doing the same thing that Cure did when Cure brought back his Reapers, where they're playing the metagame. I guess it seems that a lot of Zergs right now are trying to go for a brief flood of Lings, just one big round to try and swarm the Reapers, because actually having 5 or 6 Reapers, or in this case 4 with a push like this one, they don't pack a lot of a punch, but occasionally those grenades can do a great job of stunning the army, especially on a map like Alcyone. That watchtower, for instance, it's very choky getting around in this. Oh, this is one of the fake Overlord pillars? I guess it is. Occasionally, these Overlord pillars on the map, they don't actually shield you from view.
It's just a doodad on the map. Doesn't give you any cover.
Yeah, or maybe it was the watchtower that was giving vision. Actually, on some of these new maps, I'm not sure of all of these interactions that can take place.
That's why we see a lot of these micro errors happen in a set of new maps, as people haven't, figured out everything yet.
Yeah, actually on... I think the map is, I think it's Hecate, the map that I'm recalling. But I watched Creator versus, I can't remember which Zerg, it might have even been Solar from Group A. And Solar put his Overlord on a pillar that you can actually see. If you send an Adept onto the high ground in your base, you can kill that Overlord with the Stalker. And so After that day of GSL, I messaged him on Discord. I'm like, hey, if this happens again, go kill that Overlord, bro. And he's like, oh, nice.
That's
But,
so funny.
I mean, this is one of the things that happens when you have new maps entering the pool is occasionally Overlords like that one will get caught out.
Did you remember that GSL were parting? Realized you could actually cannon rush on the low ground of a ramp on one of the new GSMOs. They didn't have the proper unbuildable
yeah,
plates
that was
there.
against Solar, wasn't it? I think that was
so.
against
Yeah,
Solar.
we saw it. We're like, oh, we're actually not allowed to have maps like that anymore. But like, he just knew that they hadn't fixed it
What
yet.
a scumbag.
Yeah, and it's like, well,
He's like, this is technically not
sorry,
supposed to be
Solar.
allowed.
I guess you lose this one, but we'll have this fixed next week.
I love moments like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's funny too because it has to stand, right?
Yeah.
I know, you're playing the maps that you're playing on. All right, so the Lings come in here. GuMiho just going to lift everything back up. He is macroing back at home, taking a third command center, +1/1. About done for him. Seems considerably faster than Solar. I actually thought that Solar was keeping pace with us, but I didn't realize that +1 melee attack is actually quite delayed.
Yeah, he's not going to pack the same kind of punch as he would if he had that been upgraded a little bit earlier, started a little bit earlier. The roaming's pretty good here from GuMiho. And it looks like he's going to push all the way up to this area over here. He has enough medevacs that he can full-on pick up. Looks like the Lynx, he wants to come around here from the bottom, maybe try to force us around and get a stray Marine hit with the Baneling. Instead, the pickup happens. He's going to swing around here.
Yeah, Baneling speed, even though it does research faster on the new patch, I mean, it's still quite a long ways away, so GuMiho is getting a tremendous amount of value here. Oh, focus firing, a bunch of the Banelings coming in, only loses a couple of Marines and some Reapers there on the low ground.
I don't think we saw a Baneling actually detonate and kill a Marine back there.
No, and there were 3 or 4, I think, at least that got picked off.
That was insane.
And that was so cost efficient for GuMiho that I'm concerned now for Solar. Even though +1 Carapace is done, even though Baneling's speed is completed, there are some Hellbats also entering the fray. If these next trades are also cost efficient for GuMiho, it might just be the snowball effect that we saw with Cure in the previous map against DRG, and GuMiho once again be lifting up into the main base. One of the features here on Alcyone is it's really hard to move from the triangle third into this corner of the main. Drop chip play is very effective as a result of that, so that's part of the reason why Solar is going into Hydralisk to try and get some control. I love the Queen play right there, catching these medevacs, getting a lot of damage in.
Now he can force the unload over here. There's a lot out for Terran right now. I think he could actually do a pincer attack here.
There's almost more Marines than Lings on the field right now, and anytime you have that kind of ratio, it's a very scary moment for the Zerg.
Well, the Queens are tanking pretty nicely. A couple more transfusions go down.
We even have some Reaper grenades still popping in this fight, which is just insane.
It's wild.
At 9 minutes.
And now the other attack's going to come in here from the top. So he's eked out a lot of extra damage here with these Marines. But now comes a second wave in here, and the Banelings are mostly hitting the spread out Marines on the bottom. The next wave is actually stuck behind the Hydras and the Queens. These Lings come in here for a flank. The control here from GuMiho looking pretty good. But there's still so much here from the Zerg. At the end of the day, Solar does fight it all the way back.
Yeah, that was a really tough engagement for Solar to take, but he handled it about as perfectly as you possibly could. I love the Lynx coming in from that ramp at the top left, just getting the full surround. I mean, coming into that fight, the army supplies were relatively close. GuMiho, I think, might have even had an advantage for a brief moment there, but Solar just really navigating that so well. So now GuMiho going to try and fight back and get some tempo by clearing creep, but Solar instantly repopulating with new tumors. Hive tech is underway. We even have some infestors coming out onto the field. And keep in mind, infestors, although fungal range has been reduced in terms of its casting and the damage is not quite as substantial as it once was, as soon as infestors pop, they now have 75 energy available for fungal growth. So there is some potential that if Solar is able to connect with 1 or 2 fungals on a clump of medevacs, we'll have something akin to what we saw in Group A with Scarlet versus Maru, where the Hydras just can absolutely shred the bio in. Really a momentum-changing play. And that seems to be what Solar is gunning for. He's not going to be hedging his bets too much on the infestors. In fact, only producing 1. And we'll see what he's able to get done with this. Oh, what a beautiful fungal. The Banelings instantly connect. Nothing gets picked up.
And Solar smashes that. And as we're ramping up to the max out here of units, I got to wonder, is it going to be Solar's turn here to try to come out and attack? We've got a Lurker's Den on the way. You know, the 4th base for Terran is up. It looks like SCVs are being transferred over there now, but overall, Solar in a really healthy spot. We've got another push coming out from GuMiho, but it looks like there's enough here for Solar to try to fight that back. And I wouldn't be too shocked if we start to see Solar expand down to the bottom right side of the map and pave that out with more creep.
I love the way that Solar is playing this. He's doing so well. He's already getting his adrenal glands. He's matching the Terran upgrades now at 2-2. I'm sure 3-3 is on the way for the Zerg as well. And yes, in fact, it is. Lurgerden also in production. And hey, let's not forget that a few moments ago, GuMiho had basically more Marines than there were Lings on the map. And he was attacking it from 2 different angles. And since then, Solar has just taken all of his engagements so well. This Infestor has to be really respected here too, even though the range is a little bit shorter than it once was. That Infestor already has gotten maybe, what, 12 or 14 bio units worth of value with that initial fungal, and it has enough energy for another one.
Let's see if this commitment can work. We had a lot of this with Solar on the defender side of the map. Now, whenever you have Hydralisks not on creep, the retreating is just a lot harder to pull off. If you start to lose a fight, basically all the Hydras die. So it's important you know when and where you can commit to. But it seems like Solar realized ahead of time that he was not in a safe position and abandoned that and headed back. You know, just going big picture for a second here, this is starting to look like one of those TVZs where it's going to go into a super late macro game.
It seems like GuMiho is gunning for that. Oftentimes when the window closes for Terran to try and get a killing blow in the mid game against a Zerg, then suddenly the fallback plan is for them to try and get 4, ideally 5 bases, because you want those extra 9th and 10th Vespene geysers to really pump, you know, enough Ghost Mech to be able to sustain a cost-efficient army. But I feel like Solar has so much momentum from the mid game that if GuMiho goes for this play, I don't know if he's actually going to be able to safely get up to this turtle setup. Even though the GuMiho is one of the players that's the best in the world of playing Mech, the transition into Ghost Mech from here, with Solar having the bank that he has and rapidly expanding across the map, I feel like there are some chances for killing plays coming out from Zerg.
I think you might be right. By the way, he's opened up another little avenue here. I don't think there's any way to get around there. It seems like the Zerg is basically boxed out. And another base being taken here, just to the middle of the 6 o'clock position.
Nidus Network is being produced right now by Solar. He's going to try and find another avenue of attack. And I just want to keep going back to this one Infestor. It's such a nice addition to the army because it complicates matters so much more for the Terran, and it's such a minimal investment too. You're going to get the infestation pit for Hive.
Well, it did seem like for a long time there was just really nothing that Terran could do. If an immediate, nothing Zerg could do if an immediate small push from the Terran came out, where now it can be punished instead of just the Zerg trying to put out fires endlessly.
I like it a lot. I love the play that we're seeing from Solar right now. And I'm wondering how he's going to try and set up for, you know, the aggressive endgame that Zergs tend to favor in a situation like this one, because should this game go extremely big picture, and GuMiho's able to max on Ghost Mech with planetaries and extra command centers and static defense spread out across the map, it'll be tremendously difficult for Solar to remain cost effective. I feel like Dark is arguably one of the only Zerg players in the world, maybe Dark and Serral, that can navigate that late game against Terran effectively. So for Solar with his bank, I'm expecting him to start to really ramp up the aggression and try and go for a killing blow, but over the past couple of minutes, he hasn't been able to get too much done. We'll see if that changes now with him starting to eye down this 3 o'clock base yet again.
Okay, another attack comes in. This time, it's going to go right up the ramp. By the way, the depot placement a little bit different from what we're normally used to seeing here from GuMiho. It is driven away. I wanted to mention this earlier, but like it's kind of a cute depot placement. We normally see the depots as these kind of walls that like a barrier that's raised or closed, and he just kind of stacks them together on top of each other.
It's like a sandbag almost. It's weird.
Yeah, yeah. It's only funny because I feel like we don't see that very often from any Terrans at all. The counter punch comes in here from GuMiho, but is he too far overextended? It looks like he's going to get a pickup and try to back up as quickly as possible.
I think as long as the trades are relatively cost efficient, it should be good for him because he wants to max on more ghosts and more siege tanks. He needs to trade out these bio units like Marines and Marauders in ways that are more cost effective, but did he bite off a little bit more than he can chew? As Solar is now coming in, even a drone attacking supply depots in this attack. Oh, and 4 medevacs getting picked off. This could be huge, but luckily GuMiho reinforcing from the triangle third is able to defend 3 of them. And now nukes coming into the play. GuMiho is doing a good job of slowly stabilizing. I thought that Solar might have had enough tempo to start to break him apart, but we're reaching the stage in the game where, you know, Terran, they have enough gas that they could actually start to pump out a very healthy number of ghosts, and even the vehicle weapons coming in through in the clutch.
And, you know, when you get enough ghosts, suddenly the punishments are huge, right? Anytime they retreat, if you're fast enough, of course, the snipe is pretty good.
Yes.
And you know, it can be tricky for the Zerg. We've had many games we've talked about before where it's basically the Zerg trying to end the game before the Terran can just soak up their half of the map. I think this game is no exception.
Oh, those are some really good Baneling connections, though. I think Solar might have gotten 5 or 6 ghosts.
Yeah, you know what he can
shot.
do? He's got 5k gas, so we could probably remake Banelings at an absurd amount. And we're going to have to watch how much damage the Terran endures over the next couple minutes here, and what the supply is going to be at the end of that compared to what the Zerg has. Because if you can have, you know, maybe even 3 or even 4 Baneling A moves in here, and how quickly the Terran supply plummets and how quickly the Zerg can then remax out, sometimes that's enough to flatten the Terran.
I think GuMiho just might not have enough siege tank production right now. There's only 5 on the map, and none of them are here in this critical junction.
And it seems like he can only produce siege tanks in pairs. So we're going to see this army get cleaned up, but what's important to note is that there's about 50 Zerglings hatching. No doubt there's going to be Banelings made again. The Terran is a quarter out from being maxed, but another attack in, we could see this supply disparity begin to widen even further.
Yeah, as GuMiho's bank gets lower and lower here, I mean, he's down at 700 minerals with 164 army supply. It becomes a very scary situation, and the creep is even getting ready to knock on his door. And just thinking back on those previous engagements, the lack of siege tanks between the natural expansion and this triangle third has been so damaging for GuMiho, because the Ghosts are having to split against Banelings, and nothing is shooting the Banelings from range and finding damage. Now, this engagement going a lot better for GuMiho than previous ones. There is a good fungal on the Ghost, but the Banelings a little bit too far away to connect. Of course, this is one of the stages of the game where we're talking about the benefits of, oh, those Investors burrowed right now, actually just outside of scan range. They do not have enough energy for a fungal.
Yeah, a bit of an interruption there on the Baneling morph, but this is just going to drive the Zerg a little bit further back. By the way, very top left base has been taken.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you know, we're starting to see Solar really wrap around into every single position, even a Nidus network coming in over here. So the Terran is getting surrounded.
And just thinking back on these Infestors, you know, one of the critical interactions that happens in a late game TVZ is Infestors being able to get fungals on a clump of ghosts so that Banelings can finally connect with them and wipe them off the map. And the fact that the range is a little bit reduced now on the Infestors makes that considerably harder for the Zergs to get done. And you can see that kind of coming into play in several of these engagements where Solar is struggling with a handful of Infestors to really get the big fungal connections on the Ghost. And that's allowing GuMiho to stabilize a little bit better. But as you said, Solar, he is consuming the map. He's mining a base in the top left that by rights should belong to GuMiho. That's one of the win conditions here for Zerg. If you can't be as cost efficient as the Terran, then if you're able to take more of the map than the Terran, that disadvantage kind of starts to go away.
Well, this small drop going to be pushed out shortly here. Terran now taking the gold base. We're out of bases. No doubt Zerg's going to reclaim the gold. It's just, you know, about a screenshot away from here. But we also have no gas in the bank for Terran. So this is a very different, very stark contrast to the 4K gas in the bank for Solar. Solar probably needs to act pretty quickly here. Obviously, you never know exactly where your opponent's gas is. You always have kind of maybe a vague idea, maybe you don't have any idea at all. But we're going to start to see these Hydra Ling Bane moves come in here, and damage just spike in these interactions.
All right, another big engagement coming in. Hydra's actually almost getting in melee rangers. Solar's going for the full surround, gets a ton of ghosts with those connections. The Hydras just continue to push forward. No fear at all. I think Solar just wants to get the best possible trade with the bank that he's got in Remax. And as you said, GuMiho, his gas is pretty much depleted right now. His army is almost pure ghost Siege Tank. He's now starting to remax on a number of Marines because he just needs something to kind of bulwark the defense here. But I'm watching Solar's supply rapidly reach max again. 24 more Banelings in production, another Infestor entering the field. And I don't know if GuMiho can survive a couple more pushes like that. This is starting to look really scary. As you said, gas continues to be the problem. Ever since that previous push that Solar made on the triangle third for GuMiho, he has not been mining the gas there. And now taking this gold base, there's only one Vespene Geyser here. I don't even think it's a high yield. So the gas issues for GuMiho, they aren't going to be going away anytime soon. I'm actually surprised he's not lifting this command center between, you know, the linear third base and the natural expansion. Is I would love to see him start to saturate the gas over by that triangle third, but as of yet, unable to get it. And should Solar start to come in, if he recognized the situation, I think he would be a lot more aggressive in trying to trade out with the Terran. But of course, as you said, it's hard to know when you're playing in the game exactly what the economic setup is of your opponent.
Yeah, I look at the numbers at the bottom of the screen, I go, oh, you just need to actually dump your supply into him in damage and trade out a couple times, and you should be able to win. But I think the defensive posture that Solar has right now is actually going to hurt him, because it's allowing GuMiho a couple more minutes on the clock to try to get it together here. But we know inevitably the Zerg is going to attack in. And so here we go now. I mean, a crazy, about 180 degrees of attack coming here from the Zerg. So many Banes coming down now, but you know, the gold base is so heavily fortified with siege tanks in, like, you know, so many different positions, it's kind of impossible to get into. I would not mind seeing the Zerg hit 12 o'clock. I would not mind seeing the Zerg go for a Nidus network, or go for even like a, I guess a drop's kind of out of the question here, just the way this map is shaped, but try some alternative approaches, because the vast majority of those tanks were over at the gold base. Now about half of them over here to try to hit this gold base now.
Yeah, GuMiho's getting on the aggression. Gonna be dropping a nuke over here at the 6 o'clock position. We'll see if Solar's able to catch much. He does get the ghost that was going for the nuke, and actually a lurker transition coming in. I love these lurkers trying to get into a position over here between this critical junction of the center of the map and those ghosts. Oh, GuMiho's got to be very careful.
So this is what I was talking about. I think a couple more moves like this, if he can make a little bit more progress. Because the reality is, you know, GuMiho's not maxed out. He doesn't have a lot to work with. So if he has to be spread out and defending a lot of positions, you're eventually going to find that weak area, that Achilles heel, that part in the infrastructure that's exposed, and you can hit it really hard.
Yeah, Solar with those lurkers is just causing a big problem for GuMiho in terms of he's actually going to land the command center over there by that hatchery.
Yeah,
That's
why
so
not?
funny.
By the way, gas situation looking a lot different. You know, we were talking about how we wish that Solar acted a lot sooner, because I think he probably had more of an opportunity to close the game out. But instead, the game's gone on. Terran is still alive. Supplies are much closer. And now they're both fairly even on gas banked up, which is virtually none.
Yeah, but GuMiho had to send a lot of units back to deal those lurkers in between the natural and the third base, so that's going to allow Solar to come in for an opening. Does force a liftoff on that gold, but unfortunately not really getting the best connections. And now his gas bank almost entirely depleted, and you can really start to feel the momentum in this game shifting as GuMiho just takes cost-efficient trade after cost-efficient trade. Solar once again coming in. EMP's going down on the spellcasters here too, and I think Solar's starting to run out of steam.
I think he's probably now in a position that's losing. Yeah, and then now he cannot recover. GG.
Wow. GuMiho just barely threaded the needle in that game. He was so close to dying.
He lasted. He lasted long enough. You know, Solar was sitting on so much gas, and when we saw that, like, literally GuMiho has 100 gas in the bank, and in a second that goes down to 0. He's spending all his gas. You can actually make Mass Hydra, Ling, Baneling, and just flood a couple positions a couple times, drive them back, because those gas geysers for the Terran are drying up. So the exterior bases, the perimeter bases, that's where the future gas is going to be. If you could deny that, all they can make is Marines, maybe Hellions, but, you know, over time, especially if you're expanding quickly as Zerg, you could win it. But a lost opportunity there from Solar. Obviously a tough game, easier said than done, but that does give GuMiho a 1-0 lead.
Solar was in a prime position to try and break that one through, though. It was a very closely fought battle on Alcyone. But now we're going to GuMiho's map pick here on Solaris. Is he going to be able to bring the same thing to the table here and close this one out 2-0? Let's find out.
GuMiho.
Onside, Solar.
So definitely game one, a lot more like what we thought today was going to look like. Some long, dramatic TVZs. Game two, I mean, we don't see any SCVs running across the map to make barracks, but we do have a gas being taken right away.
Yeah, gas first for Solar and command center first for GuMiho.
Okay. Well, this is a very aggressive build here versus a very greedy build.
Terran OP from Redwood City. We got a lot of Californians here today.
Yeah. Well, this might end pretty quick. I don't know exactly how this interaction can go, but
yeah, this is
this is on paper you just go, well, I mean, how early is the pool? How late is the barracks?
Yeah, look at that gas timing. I feel like that's something like a 3-minute speed should Solar decide to go for speed. I wonder if this will be some kind of Ravager play instead. Time will tell.
Well, I mean, but A, you're safe from an attack early on. But B, I mean, if the Terran's this late, 2 gases, by the way. Let's see if anything can get down here and really do damage.
Yeah, 4 links will be produced. Zergling speed does get fired up, and Solar's still mining gas, but not as much as before.
Yeah. Link speed starts. We need to see, does he get an add-on right away? Does he make one Marine? What's the plan? The command center is being built on the low ground, but the Zerglings can't get over there in time to deny it. And a Reaper can deal with Zerglings, at least before they have Link speed. So the Reaper's going to finish long before Zergling speed finishes. But if the command center can get up, and Terran could safely defend this, whether that's with a bunker or just having enough units to hold this, I do feel like this is going to be a very good spot here for GuMiho.
Yeah, I think it depends on exactly what Solar decides to do aggressively, as he only has 50 gas in the bank right now. He is slowly mining it, and it seems like he is just waiting for that Reaper to come across the map so he can get something done. And I'm curious how much Solar is going to commit, because getting a gas that early as Zerg against command center first, if you don't find a way to get damage done, it doesn't feel very good. Getting that gas is expensive. Even just building the extractor that early, it's one drone that's not mining minerals when it could have been, and you're doing it against the greediest possible opening Terran can bring to the table in the command center first. So now speed is done. These 4 links are going to come in. They should be able to find at least 1 or 2 SCVs. That command center, I would not be surprised if it got lifted off, but is this going to be enough damage here for Solar to justify it?
Yeah, he does get probably up to, what, 3 kills here? Yeah, there's the 3rd.
But canceling the depot as well.
I feel like GuMiho's probably fine. I mean, he's going to get an armory here, too. That's interesting.
Kind of an interesting unit interaction. Cyclones coming out. Will we see a second factory? Is this going to be a mech game?
After how crazy that last game was, it's easy for me to forget that GuMiho is the mech god. But yeah, you can almost bet in any best of 3 the mech play is going to come out one way or the other. So he's continuing to cycle out Cyclones in pairs.
Yep, there it is. Factory on the tech lab. Oh, there was the second factory. I didn't even see it on the production tab for whatever reason. I'm just blind. But no, we're going to have Hurricane Thrusters coming in. That is the speed upgrade for these Cyclones. And +1 vehicle weapons also underway.
Now, it does seem like Cyclones are remarkable at kiting.
Oh, they're insane.
They're insane.
I remember back... Sorry, I don't mean to cut you off.
No, I was just going to say, you have Stutter Step Micro and how impressive that is. But it just seems like Cyclones, especially if the Zerg doesn't have the right number of units, you can really lose control of the game very quickly. And this looks like it's going to be Cyclones, I'm guessing, with like a Hellbat morph.
I think it's just for +1 attack, actually.
Okay.
I think this is more likely to be... I mean, you're absolutely right. It could be a Hellbat push that
Well, I mean,
eventually culminates.
I might
but
be wrong too. I mean, it's always kind of hard to figure out what GuMiho is going to do because he plays so differently.
I think this is just going to be Battle Mech, though. Just kind of taking map control like this, taking favorable trades, because these Cyclones, they pack a lot of a punch.
I guess if you look at it, all the units from the Terran are so microable. Like, Queens can kind of deal. They can kind of hang with this, but they have to burn through their transfuses. And, you know, how long is that going to take to regen?
Yeah, and Solar's going for a lot of roaches to deal with this, and I'm wondering how that is going to scale against basically a full Battle Mech composition here from GuMiho, because oftentimes, I mean, it's kind of limited the experience that I've seen TVZs get played on this new patch with the Hurricane Thrusters, but usually what happens when Terran drops their momentum in this matchup, if they're going for Battle Mech, is Zerg is going to have a flood of Lings come in from maybe a 180-degree angle, get us around on the Hellions, get us around on the Cyclones, and clean it up that way. But if you're going into Roaches, especially before Roach speed is done, as Glial Reconstitution only just now beginning, there's a lot of kiting potential for these Cyclones. As you see right here, the Roach is just kind of taking a lot of free damage. So I'm wondering exactly what this response is going to culminate in, what it's going to build up to here for Solar. And it is possible that there are multiple ways of dealing with this, as an infestation pit is coming down now. Maybe Solar's going to try and find some way to get a fungal off on this group of units. It's hard to say, because Battle Mech, oftentimes when we saw it before in the previous patch, it would be something that would kind of play into an all-in. Cure would occasionally go for Battle Mech, basically all-in type styles, and it worked. It was viable, but given the new patch, the reduced cost of the Cyclone, it's something now that you can go for, but not necessarily commit a lot of resource to. You can open up with it and then transition into a siege tank mech, which it seems like GuMiho is doing.
Yeah, he's pretty patiently going into that siege tank mech now. The third base is set up before the fourth base finishes, so GuMiho kind of using that map presence, forcing a lot of roaches out here, and then disengaging entirely. And, you know, that's the thing. You could already just see from the way the Cyclone can move and the Roach can move that you can basically kite this forever, unless it's a position where the Terran has to try to hold his ground. We've got a siege tank in the back over here. You know, the Hellions are basically expendable at this point in time. And look at this. I think had those not been blocked by the Hellbats, he could have just pursued that even further. And it's been a pretty comfortable game here from GuMiho. Now, GuMiho, because he's done this off and on for a while, you know, it's kind of cool to see it in this version of the patch, because the Cyclones have a little bit more of a functional role. But I got to say, this does not look bad here for GuMiho.
No, it looks rock solid. And for Solar, it is going to be a couple of infestors. I think he might have made 2 or 3 in total, but just look at the cost efficiency right now. That was, I think, 1,000 more res. The Hellions are also going to spot the infestors, so GuMiho's going to have that on his mind. These Hellions should be able to find a handful of drones, but really the trades have not been cost effective for Solar at all. And looking at the supplies right now, you might think that Solar is in a fine position and possibly even in an advantageous one, but those supplies are massively inflated by Ravagers and Roaches, which are, you know, some of the least supply efficient units in the game. So Solar is going to have to find a way to trade these out in a way that is effective. And I think that's going to be hoping he can find an angle where GuMiho is unprepared and catch him with fungal growth, because Cyclones, although they excel at kiting, they are relatively brittle if you can get on top of them. They do not have a lot of HP.
Yeah, no, they're pretty fragile units if they can ever get cornered. But it does seem like this is a game where you sort of lead the Zerg into ramping up the supply of Roach Ravager, and then play around it by having siege tanks that you can leapfrog in with this like really microable set of you know, Hellbats and Cyclones that are just sort of dealing damage the whole time. Very punishing right now for the Zerg. The Infestors are going to get fractioned off from the rest. One goes down, the other one will go ahead to the safety of the expansion. But, like, I don't know, man. It just doesn't seem like this is a position where Solar's going to be able to regain ground very quickly. I know there's a lot of Roaches that are going to hatch in a second here, and maybe that changes it. We also do have a Greater Spire coming, but I think this hatchery is going to go down, and it doesn't seem like the Zerg can fight and try to take a position that's too deep into this line of tanks that extends off the screen here towards the left.
Yeah, one of the key interactions here is the Ravagers coming forward to try and bile down the siege tanks and one-shot them and then they retreat. But with Cyclones, their new maneuverability, even though their leash range is not as high as it used to be when they lock on, they just shred Roaches, they shred Ravagers, and every time that Solar is pushing forward to try and bile down these Siege tanks, he's bleeding a lot of units, and he is going to catch the Terran army mostly on Siege, but I mean, as soon as 2 Siege tanks get fortified there.
I mean, look at how the tanks can kind of snake around and set up another really wide tank line here.
Yeah.
And the Zerg could come through with the corrosive biles and try to get those connections, but a lot is sacrificed on the Zerg's end. Now, we saw that base down at the bottom get denied. It looks like it's going to be denied again. There it is now. But if the Zerg loses one more base, it's Terran 4 base to Zerg 3 base. Again, if the Zerg loses a base. It looks like there's 2 pretty tempting spots to try to attack into.
We have Broodlords morphing in, but only a handful of them, and Thor production is already underway here for GuMiho, so everything seems to be going Terran's way. I kind of feel like Solar is just getting beaten at every single turn right now. The Mech army continues to march forward. These Cyclones very low on HP, but GuMiho's done an excellent job of keeping them alive, and every single engagement is so insanely cost efficient. I mean, for GuMiho,
you
it's
could
just
say
wild.
that, like, you know, this Mech style clearly just beats Roach Ravager. Like, I don't know if Zerg should ever go down this path.
We had 2 Cyclones go up that ramp and I think kill a Broodlord, by the way, during all of that too.
Crazy.
It's just insane.
Now, the Broodlords are the saving grace here because nothing here can really easily deal with that. But, you know, you're now stuck on this Roach Ravager Broodlord. There's Thors coming. We know Thors can deal with Broods.
Oh, move command right here for GuMiho. That's a big throw. He needed those Cyclones and Hellions to move alive. That might actually change this game a little bit here on its head.
I think you're right. Well, we got to see what damage these Broodlords can do. He's going to do a big counterattack right up to basically where the rallies would come out. That separates the attacking units away from the base we just saw on the bottom right. Thors are going to come out. Now, if the Thors can gun down the Broodlords, then I think he's going to be okay, because I think he can just muster out enough. But it looks like Solar has a lot in this game.
I mean, the abducts right there on 2 Thors were massive. Eventually, the Broodlords will still go down, but I think GuMiho just kind of move commanding his Cyclone army into the Roach Ravager might have spelled disaster for this game. It looked like he was in such a good position.
I think the game would have gone on had he not lost that big group of units at the top.
Yeah, I mean, just imagine how much more micro potential he would have had against this.
It's crazy, because, like, he basically got Zerg just up to the brink of death, and then the Zerg got the Broodlords out. It's like, okay, I've held it off. Now we need to do the counterattack. We need to try to push it and do our own damage. And that's what GuMiho had. I don't know what was going on, bad hotkey, whatever it is. He had these units right-clicked somewhere when they probably should have been A-clicked. So move command instead of attack command. Lost a lot.
Yeah, those Cyclones are the units that you need to control the Roaches and Ravagers by hiding them.
There was enough Thors to take on the Broodlords, but there was enough on the ground, and there was nothing there to kite like the Cyclones. So here we go. Now we're into game 3.
Yeah, a bit of an overextension there for GuMiho, and some missed micro on top as well, as the game was looking really good for him. I wonder if we're going to see him go back to that style on Hecate, because I feel like if he executes it correctly against the response that Solar showed in game number 2, it should translate into a win. He just seems to have everything going for him, but GuMiho, he is a wild card. What is he going to bring to the table here in the final map?
GuMiho.
Onside, Solar.
Yeah, what kind of game is GuMiho going to bring here? Or is Solar going to be the one that takes the initiative? We know that typically in a TVZ, it's usually the Terran who's going to dictate the pace of the game, and the Zerg surveys, stays back, and responds, tries to cut corners, or make a bunch of units to defend. It just depends. But, you know, in that game, it really was one where the Terran was right up to the finish line as far as winning, and then just did not control a huge amount of units. And Hellions and Cyclones, if they get in a bad position and they're right-clicked through units, they'll all just die.
Especially against Roaches and Ravagers. They have a lot of DPS.
Yeah, the advantage they have is they can play keep away. They can kite the other units and then try to, you know, accumulate a lot of damage onto the other units over time. But it did seem like GuMiho was right up to that moment, ready to keep the Zerg either behind on bases or even, and then just counterattack the Broodlords with the Thors, and then fill that right back into the original unit comp of Cyclone, Tank, Hellion.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. It certainly felt like GuMiho had played the mid-game masterfully. He was taking cost-efficient trades. He repeatedly shut down the 4th base, and although he didn't get any direct economic damage done besides really denying that base, against the Roach Ravager comp that Solar was running, those Cyclones, they got so much incredible value, but you know, the one real vulnerability for GuMiho in that moment is when the Broodlords do pop, because you actually do need to have Thors there for the anti-air. And the Thors, when they're dealing with the Broodlords, they need support on the ground to allow them to actually deal with the air. Otherwise, everything falls apart. And so GuMiho just kind of had one of the worst missed micros you can have and the worst possible moments that you can have. I'm very curious if Solar would have actually been able to succeed with that attack if GuMiho did not go for that missed micro, because it seemed like everything was kind of coming together in that one final push for the Zerg. It was really his last big chance, I think, to get something done. And I mean, we're never going to know exactly what those armies would have looked like had they clashed at their full potential. But maybe we'll get a bit of a recap on that again, because GuMiho, once again here on Hecate, in map number 3, he went for Command Center first in a double gas. He's going for a very fast starport, the factory. Gonna build a Hellion, 2 Marines, and then I wouldn't be surprised if we switched add-ons. And no, actually, it's a second barracks coming in from GuMiho.
So and look, he puts that way in the back. He knows that there is, you know, it's not clear from the Zerg's perspective what is GuMiho going to do, and so he hides a tech lab way in the back. There's a Stargate also being made in the front. Whenever you see barracks, factory, Stargate, or Starport, excuse me, you never know what kind of game you're going to get. You would expect it to be mass Marine with infantry, but you don't know for sure with GuMiho. And we've even seen a couple games where he's gone for infantry and then ditches it into mech.
Yeah, sometimes if Terrans identify that they're going into a situation where they really can't win the game with bio, it's a slow transition into mech that can stabilize things. But Solar, with the clutch scout, actually spots the Tech Lab barracks, so he's going to know straight away that it's bio. And Solar's play against bio, it's pretty solid, I have to say. I feel like I'm much more confident in Solar's abilities of dealing with a GuMiho bio style than a GuMiho mech style. And the fact that his hand is revealed this early in the game, I'm liking that scout for Solar. That's a clutch scout, and I feel like that's even a scout that Solar probably wouldn't do against most Terran opponents, sacrificing the Overlord like that. But against GuMiho, he is such a wild card.
It was a smart move to try to get in there. And so now you know you're against you know, a very classic opening here from the TVZ. It's going to be Marines roaming, moving around as best they can, cleaning up creep tumors, doing damage, picking up in the medevacs when they you know, can't hold their ground any longer.
Yeah, no stim pack, so these Marines not going to try and trade out with the Queens whatsoever. Just going to lift right back up into their medevac, as the 3rd Command Center also going to get thrown down. Relatively quick here for GuMiho. It's
quick, but not the quickest for sure.
Yeah, it's kind of in the middle. Sometimes we'll see players open with something like a 3-1-1 or go for that Command Center very quickly.
Yeah, you get beyond, he makes 5 more Raxes and then makes the Command Center later on. And so, look, I mean, this isn't good or bad. It's kind of very middle of the road. And, you know, the Zerg needs to treat it as such in this game. Don't over-defend, because then the Terran gets the 3rd base up easily and you can't punish. Don't under-defend, because this is enough out on the map that you can do some real damage with this.
Yeah, if Solar is caught out of position, and let's not forget, the first map played on Alcyone, GuMiho was able to win with bioplay, and he did a great job of it. GuMiho,
oh my God,
actually catching Solar out of position, going to get a good number of drones, but the splits so far have been solid. Only 4, in fact, going down.
Yeah, that was actually unreal.
That's about
more drones were not killed there.
Yeah, that's about as well done as it could have been given the circumstances, and part of it's also Solar's excellence in City. I love the double evolution chamber blocking off. It's almost like a PVT wall in the way you build the gateway in the Cybernetics core to block the Hellions or the Reapers from being able to navigate, as those Reapers, the Hellions, excuse me, were not able to find much of an angle there on the 3rd base for Solar. So Nice play.
Yeah, not bad at all.
Infestation Pit now coming in for Zerg as GuMiho is going to go for a 3 medevac drop in the main base.
So let's see how much damage this can do. There are Zerglings here, but not enough Zerglings to where it's going to scare the Terran away from the spot. And this could actually be a lot of damage because I'm pretty sure Zerg didn't expect the drop this big to come in here.
Yeah, Solar getting caught out of position a couple of times, and it's going to be a cost-efficient trade for GuMiho, but not too much damage done economically. And oh, Solar with these queens.
Oh, got to be careful. Almost another moment where you right-click right through a bunch of damage.
Solar is one of these Zergs, by the way. I'm always continuously impressed with his micro, specifically his queen micro. Whether he's playing a ZVT or a ZVP, he always seems to be on the intercept with queens, trying to catch units like oracles, like medevacs. It's one of his calling cards too, and of course I say that. Okay, I was worried that he was going to immediately lose a bunch of queens after I say this, but luckily he was paying attention.
I know those moments. You're like, this guy's actually so good at his control, and the medevacs fly into a bunch of stuff that kills him. Well, we're getting the Zerg's 4th base up. Terran is going to push in here. I don't think it's going to get much done unless the control is insane. It is 3 tanks. I guess it depends on where he decides to place those tanks. This high ground area where the grass is looks pretty tempting. Maybe you can try to line that up and basically make this setup where you try to fish the Zerg's army in, let them take a lot of siege tank blows.
Actually, the standing army for Solar does not look very scary unless he's able to get a clutch fungal with this Infestor and land some biles on it.
All right, he's getting a pretty good spread with his siege tanks here.
Yeah, I think this hatchery is going to go down.
Well, that if it goes down, it's huge. Zerg is staying back, and, you know, we don't have a lot of, well, I guess we have some morphine units here, but not the kind where it's going to really matter that much. Yeah,
there's no
there's
banelings.
Just no way.
It's just fast lurker.
That's pretty big. Now, we've been casting StarCraft 2 forever here at GSL, but we've talked about this before. Sometimes games just end where the Zerg loses the 4th base a couple times. And it's like, yeah, you're just never going to win the game on 3 bases. A Terran can just keep what they've got, defend your counterattacks, and then just push into the next new place. That's pretty good.
This is a unique style that Solar is coming through with. Really fast hive lurkers, no Baneling's Nest whatsoever. He almost even skipped the Hydras. You know, we barely saw any Hydralisks on the map before the lurker transition.
Yeah, I was a little bit thrown off by the tech itself there. I think it would have looked a lot better had the lurkers been done to protect the 4th base, but now it's going to be a little bit more of a difficult game.
You got to be careful with those lurkers, though, before the hive tech upgrades are done. Once they get that range, they become a lot more effective than before then.
We've got a drop headed towards the main as there's a push down here at the 4th base. And I don't see anything to defend the main.
Yeah, everything right now is just trying to intercept this army here. I think Solar might be underestimating how much GuMiho has and all these drones retreating back behind the mineral line. A lot of them might get sniped off.
Dude, this is a lot here for the Terran. And I mean, the engages are not that great. He's a little bit spread out, GuMiho is. But this should allow for a pretty good push. Yeah, we're going to see this come right now. And he's not just going for the bottom right. It looks like he wants to maybe hit the 3rd and wedge in between. No, he's going to pick up and send another drop of the same size back into the main.
I think he's identifying that Solar is going to try and play this hive lurker style, and as Solar is getting these lurkers out, it's hard for him to have much of a standing army to really run around and intercept these drops, especially with basically no Hydras on the field at all. So if GuMiho can exert a lot of pressure on the 4th base here for Solar and commit Solar to defending this position, then suddenly that triple drop in the main. Oh, Fungals getting paired up with the Biles there.
But
very good.
The dodge is pretty good. A big drop here in the main. Yeah, when you go for this lurker tag, sometimes you can just kind of avoid where the lurkers are, and you'll find there's a lot of weak positions that can't really easily be defended. The tanks are going to spread out. I just don't think that, you know, you could afford to lose this base here as Solar.
Oh my God.
Oh.
The hive just got taken out by this drop. GuMiho with a Solary just knew he was going to be able to pull Solar all the way down to that 4th base, and I feel like you were almost premonition when you called. We see Zergs often lose games when they just keep losing their 4th base, and that was basically GuMiho's game plan there, was to leverage a ton of pressure on the 4th, force Solar to commit everything to defending it. And as you said, lurkers, they aren't very mobile, especially this early on in the game when you only have a handful of them. We only have 4 lurkers right now on the map.
I mean, the only thing that Solar has right now is a big army that has been unable to defend his other bases. So we have a 3rd base being remade. Again, you know, with the hive tech destroyed, it really starts to add complications. There's nothing even comparable for Terran or Protoss that you could put in the same level as losing that Hive.
I mean, that's about as clutch of fungal as you could possibly get, but it still doesn't matter as the bio stims forward. A ton of Ravagers and Hydras getting taken out, and Solar, even his economy, he's basically on 2 bases right now. He's just saturating what would have been the triangle third. He's not rebuilding the hatchery in the main base because it's mostly mined out. Now just only at this moment throwing it down. And I don't know how Solar is going to be able to handle these pushes. Now most of these siege tanks are unsieged. This is about as good an engagement as Solar is possibly going to be able to get. The Bile's even coming down.
This is going to be it. GG. GuMiho takes it 2-1. Giving us a TVT here in the winners match with GuMiho versus Cure. The tongue is out.
Tongue is out.
That's when you know he's focused.
Interesting style there from Solar in Game 3. I don't think I've seen that ZVT style from him very much at all, really. And GuMiho just knew exactly what to do, and he picked him apart.
Well, GuMiho really honestly played a lot better than Solar. I know Solar won Game 2, but you know, if you go back and just see the moment where Solar dropped the ball, or GuMiho dropped the ball with a bad A move, honestly, I mean, GuMiho is looking just really scary, really strong. Guys, short break. When we return, GuMiho versus Cure. The winner is the first to go to the round of 4 here in Season 3 of the GSL Codas.
Anytime, any place. Anytime, any place.